Cabins are available with 1 to 7 bedrooms. Golden Bear Cottages is just a stone's throw from Big Bear Lake and super close to 3 great ski areas. Now, I could go on all day about Golden Bear Cottages in Big Bear, but to see everything, just go to goldenbear.net. Again, goldenbear.net. Golden Bear Cottages in Big Bear. Clean, comfortable, and affordable. Check them out. goldenbear.net.
Hi, welcome to AT&T.
Hi, can you tell us more about rollover data?
Yeah, what do we have to do?
Not a thing. If you're a Mobile Share Value customer, your unused plan data automatically rolls over for 1 month. It's our way of saying thanks.
That's so wonderful.
Let's hug.
Oh, that's okay. We don't have to.
I think we do.
Yeah, I think we do.
Nice.
Let's bring it in. Oh.
Oh, wow. And we're hugging. All 3 of us. Really hugging. Ooh, who smells like bacon?
Introducing AT&T Rollover Data. All Mobile Share Value plans now come with rollover data on the network with the nation's strongest LTE signal. AT&T, mobilizing your world. AT&T reminds you to never text and drive. It can wait.
Available only with AT&T Mobile Share Value plans. Rollover data automatically expires after 1 month or with any plan change. Other restrictions apply. Visit att.com/rollover data for details. Signal strength claim based only on average LTE signal strength for national carriers.
What have I learned so far? I've learned that there is no one path that's right for everyone. I've learned that without my high school diploma, I could only do so much. My options were limited. I found a free personalized learning program with Learn for Life that has a flexible schedule so I could keep my job while earning my high school diploma. I found a new career training opportunity that would jumpstart my future. What have I learned so far? I've learned that I can change my life.
Are you 14 to 19 years old and looking for a free high school diploma program with flexible meeting times? This program allows you to keep your job or important family responsibilities while earning your high school diploma. If you've fallen behind on credits or dropped out of school completely, get back on track with free tutoring, a caring faculty, and one-on-one attention. For more information on how to reach your graduation goal, visit learnforlife.org. That's LEARN, the number 4, LIFE.org. Or enroll today by calling 877-360-LEARN. That's 877-360-LEARN.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-643-6931 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-643-6931 to take your call now. Call 1-800-643-6931. That's 1-800-643-6931. Again, 1-800-643-6931.
Do you have a broken window or rock chip on your vehicle that needs repair? Give us a call at HM Auto Glass, 951-858-5190. HM Auto Glass is your locally owned and operated auto glass specialist, offering low cost and high quality auto glass repair and replacement. We also work with all major insurance companies and offer free mobile service. So call us, 951-858-5190. That number again is 951-858-5190.
Hey, this is Steve Sanchez, and do you know in 2007, I went off to the doctor for a basic checkup, and he informed me, Steve, you got plaque built up around your heart, and you're going to need stents. I informed him, with no offense, doc, I need a second opinion. I go off to a naturopathic doctor, and he introduces me to something called Zango. It's a juice made of the whole mangosteen fruit. You know, the mangosteen fruit has been used for centuries for healing. So, hey, what do I have to lose? I tried it. 3 months later, I go back to my cardiologist, no plaque, no stents, and I'm proud to say 7.5 years later, I'm stent stint free. I want to turn you on to Zengo because it's the only true 100% mangosteen fruit juice. It's patented. In fact, the Mayo Clinic is paying attention because they're doing an extensive study because they cannot ignore all the testimonials around the world. I want to give you a free sample of the Zengo juice today. Simply call 888-309-5656. That's 888-309-5656 for your free mangosteen juice sample today from the company called Zengo.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-643-9406. That's 1-800-643-9406. Again, 1-800-643-9406. Call now.
Part party, part therapy, all good. That's Langdon Nation After Dark, your new home for great talk and big laughs, every Friday at midnight. Launch yourself into the weekend with comic and psychiatric professional Langdon Basarge and some of the best comics around. Fridays at midnight, Langdon Nation After Dark. Seriously funny.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate, to live, love, laugh, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Fay on ubnradio.com.
And welcome. You are tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa every Tuesday at naturally high noon out of the Sunset Gower Studios here in Hollywood, California, with Universal Broadcasting Network, and every Thursday on my syndicated CNBC News radio channel, KCAA, AM 1050, Loma Linda. And that's at 7 for your drive home PST. And we are at the end of the month, which means we are at our wonderful series called Sexual Healing with Dr. Marissa that got started probably about a year ago when I knew that it was a topic that I had fun with. Valentine's month, Dr. Pat Allen, 4-time Oprah guest, 4-time Asian Oprah guest, and the therapist on Millionaire Matchmaker came on. And it was so much fun talking about the reality that many, many women aren't having the best sex or the best orgasms they could. And since that is definitely an important part of life, and my show's all about hope and happiness 88% of the time, and a great feeling of pleasure is one of the gifts of life. So that's what launched this particular series. And before I go to my guest, I want to just do a shout out to all of my fellow sailors. I was just on the water the entire weekend with Almond Sails Long Beach Race Week. Hello to Almond Sails and Long Beach Yacht Club, and thank you so much for the fun. And we ended up our last race with the second place, so I'm thrilled that we got it together that finally. But I'm the pit boss, and I've been doing that for decades, and it's one of the joys of my life. So if you've always wanted to try sailing, go and try it, because don't die wondering. That's my motto in life. Also, 21-day fast from complaining starts tomorrow. Year number 5. That's right. I started with 40 people back July 1st, 2011. We're now over 8,800 people who are trying not to complain for 21 days in a row. So if you are tired of complaining, if you're tired of listening to people complain, invite them to the fast. It's a nice hint, kind of like putting mouthwash on their desk or deodorant, so they can know that you want to stop complaining, and they're going to help you. So sign up at forbalance.org, and then if you make it 21 days, you get a free pack of my motivational cards 52 card pick-me-ups, stacking the deck for life balance with Dr. Marissa. All right, and now, sexual healing. One of the most important parts of sexual healing is the healing aspect of things that are not going right in the sexual arena. And I got invited nicely by a filmmaker and a therapist. His name is Paul Gnocchio, to go and preview his film a few months back. And it's called The Courage to Love. And Paul Gnocchio is a licensed marriage and family therapist and sexual addiction specialist with a private practice in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's the creator of the film The Courage to Love, one of the first documentaries ever made about sexual addiction and recovery. Paul is passionate about educating about sexual addiction, has been traveling around the country screening this very important film, The Courage to Love, to audiences and deepening the cultural conversations about the reality of sexual addiction. So without further ado, please welcome to the studio, Paul Gnocchio. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. And before I ask you a bunch of questions from my listeners about your film, I would like to show the preview. So those of you who are driving, you can't watch this on the app. But if you are at home on your video screens, this is the wonderful thing about being on UBN Radio TV, is we actually get to watch this. So here we go.
With the sex addiction, it's like, I'm sad to say that I know what it's like to be sexual with somebody 6 times a day, with 6 different people, 15 minutes apart, like clockwork, and for years. Did that for years. To me, that's sex addiction.
I surrendered in handcuffs. You know, I had a blue light special, and it was exhibitionism got me arrested. Sitting in strip clubs didn't get me arrested. Getting lap dances didn't get me arrested. Picking up hookers didn't get me arrested. And looking at porn didn't get me arrested. In a glory hole didn't get me arrested. I did a lot of crazy behavior.
And when I discovered that I could have sex with men in volume anywhere, for me, it was like, well, it doesn't matter who, doesn't matter how, doesn't matter what sex, doesn't matter what age, doesn't matter what they look like. An orgasm's an orgasm, and the more the better. And so, no, I wouldn't say that was enjoyable, but it was highly addictive.
I have lost sometimes 5, 6, 7 hours looking on internet pornography, masturbating twice, 3 times, even though after the first time I felt so bad about myself. I was like, oh God, I never want to do that again. And then an hour later I'm on again, searching around. That's out of control. It's out of control to shut my phone off so nobody calls me. It's out of control to feel like a guilty monster when I walk out in the world because of what I've done.
I want to stop, but I can't stop. Hiding in the shadows of my desires, but nothing is enough. It's an endless desire for something more, something I don't have, and I always come back to the pain of my life. This is the routine of my insanity. I am addicted.
It's not just sickos and perverts and weirdos. It's you and it's me.
I used to feel so alone. I used to feel so alone in this world, and it's kind of a mixed blessing, but having this addiction has brought me to all these people who are like me.
So to me, honesty is the key to this. You have to be transparent. You have to be authentic. And the only way you can be transparent and authentic is if you're known.
I think what everybody wants is you want to be loved. You want to love. You want the real thing.
And we're back, and that was the preview to The Courage to Love, a documentary about sexual addiction by filmmaker Paul Ganocchio, who is on the air with me today. I am Dr. Marissa. This is Take My Advice. I'm not using it, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, our sexual healing series every last week of the month. And that was a pretty sobering clip of a documentary that usually we've been doing some lighter topics on sexual healing, but I thought this was an important one because it really emphasizes what the show is about, and that is about balance. So on one hand, I do think that, you know, women don't talk about how to have more pleasure, how to have more orgasms, and on the other hand, anything taken to the other extreme, which is the sexual addiction that we're looking at today, is also damaging your hope and happiness and is not good for you. And it sounds like, since you are one of the main stories in there, that you've felt this firsthand. This isn't a documentary about other people. This is about you and your life.
Yeah, and sharing this film, every time I share it with an audience, which I just did again this past Sunday here in the Bay Area, it's very healing for me because, as was just kind of mentioned in that clip, is to be known is part of the healing process. And I started acting out with pornography when I was literally like 11 or 12 years old, and I'm 47 now, so that was quite many years ago. And I didn't know back then that you could get hooked on, porn and sex and use that as a drug to feel better about, myself, speak for myself here. And I got really caught up in it and caused me a lot of problems throughout my life, a lot of relationship damage, a lot of self-esteem problems. And I got into recovery in my mid-20s. And, all these years later, I realized, I want to make a film about this because I think it's important that people hear about it. Because yeah, I love the topic of your show because it is about healing. It's not just about seeing sex as bad or dirty or something. It's about how do I have sex in a way that's nurturing and cherishing towards myself and other people.
Yeah, and this is, I'm going to put the moose on the table. I don't know if I used that expression with you before. I'm happy birthday, America, by the way. This is our July 4th, and tomorrow's actually Canada's birthday, where I was born. So happy birthday, Canada. And an expression that I use, because I am Canadian, is to put the moose on the table, which is the Canadian version of talking about the elephant in the room. So I'm going to just jump in with that. I know that I was guilty of this as well. When I first heard the term sexual addiction, I'm like, oh, come on. That's an excuse for someone who just, likes porn or likes to do anything aberrant. It's not really an addiction like alcohol addiction or drug addiction. It's just an excuse. And I have to say that in researching the topic, as well as watching your documentary, I've shifted on that BS, on that belief system myself. So you are a great example of the truth about porn, because for many Americans go, porn is just a natural thing that men do, right? I mean, I've heard that so many times. So it may be, but like, how prevalent is this thing called sexual addiction? And I know there's multifaceted, even in your characters, on the way that plays out. But let's say porn addiction. Yeah. How prevalent is that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Patrick Carnes, who's kind of the leader of the field, he's done a lot of surveys and studies, and the estimate is it's at least 18 million Americans struggle with porn/sexual addiction. I think the number's personally a lot higher. I mean, I've seen, I've worked with this addiction professionally for about 7 years now, and I've treated, hundreds of men, couples. And, I think I said this to you at the screening. I won't say porn is bad. I can't speak for that. It was bad for me, but I'm not going to generalize and say it's bad for everyone. But it's your relationship to porn that can be the issue. And so, for instance, and I have this a lot, or at least recently, clients who come who've been caught at work, and they're in high-profile jobs, looking at porn at work, and getting terminated because this is company time, and so then when I track their history about their porn use, it's again gets riskier and riskier, more secretive, more destructive. And so the consequences is, again, why I see this as an addiction. It's like the power of it and then the consequences that can come from it. And if you're losing your job as a vice president of a company because you're spending hours at work looking at porn for other reasons, by the way, there's reasons people do this, that's a significant dysfunctional relationship that you have with pornography.
Right. So would it be fair to define porn addiction as you do it to the extent where it has severe consequences if you're caught, but you do it anyways because you can't stop? That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, that's kind of a textbook definition. I mean, denial is a tricky thing because oftentimes you kind of rationalize yourself that it's not a problem, and so it often takes, I call it kind of a slap from the universe to really sober you up a bit and say, whoa, I haven't had sex with my wife in 5 years. She had no idea that 5 days a week, I was at night looking at porn on my computer. When she found out and she caught me, boy, the trauma in that for her, because she thought there was something wrong with her.
Absolutely.
Right? And
absolutely.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot when I do my coaching, and I have wives who say, if they, I must not be attractive enough or he wouldn't need that. But then that BS, that standard, well, no, that's just a normal thing that men do, and don't take it personally. But it sounds like for 18 million men, it's not a normal thing. It is something that has become an issue, a problem. And in your particular case, too, you mentioned that some of that has come from your past and your abuse. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I say more and more that I always try to hone in on the pain of, for instance, a client who comes to see me. I mean, I look at my own recovery process as a bit of a map, and I had to go and look really deeply at the pain that I experienced as a young boy, because there was a reason that this is a long time ago again, but way before the internet, but I was smuggling in Playboy magazines into my bedroom at 11, 12 years old, and getting lost in that world of images and collecting them. And I mean, it was like really this hunting basically. And all that was kind of a quest for me that distracted me from the fear I felt in my childhood. My dad was a very, very angry person. He was actually repressing his own sexuality, which I found out when I was 16. He came out and he got caught cheating on my mom with men. And so a lot of his anger was because of his repression of his own sexuality. So he was physically abusive, emotionally abusive. I was, really scared of him growing up. And so, boy, Playboy became this just pleasure world for me, And then when I had a cousin when I was about 13, I think, who had hardcore porn magazines, and I started to, I actually remember even stealing one out of his house so I could have that. And it really became this more of obsession for me. And not knowing at the time that I was doing it to escape from, the fear and the pain I was feeling in my life. So a lot of my healing was about going into that fear and pain
and
as,
healing from
as an
that.
adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you're listening, if someone's listening right now and they're wondering, it's like, okay, well, I did that. I smuggled Playboys, or I did this, or I, masturbate to porn several times a week. Do I have a problem? Do I have a sexual addiction? Is there like a checklist or a way that someone will know definitively if they have a porn addiction or not? So I know it sounds like a silly question, but just for anyone who's identifying and then wondering, do I have a problem?
Right, I think it's a great question. I mean, there's a website called sexaddicthelp.com, and they actually have self-tests that you can take on there. It's called the SAST, Sex Addiction Screening Test, and it's a simpler test than the one I use as a therapist, but it's for just a general person who wants to take a test and say, hey, maybe I'm addicted to pornography, and you'll get your results. And then again, I would suggest if you test high and you want to work on this, go to a therapist who specializes in sexual addiction.
Yeah.
And there's 12-step programs, Sex Addicts Anonymous, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. go to some meetings, and again, you'll probably hear your story or not. Not everyone who looks at porn again is a sex addict, right?
Right. I like the way that you defined it. It's not the porn, it's your relationship to the porn. So if your relationship to the porn is robbing you of joy 88% of your life, of the time in your life, then it's probably a problem. I mean, if you're losing more than you're gaining by the satisfaction or the pleasure, wouldn't that for me, that's a good sign.
Yeah. Absolutely.
If it's supposed to be pleasurable, but you're suffering more than you're having pleasure, then it's probably a good sign. Yeah. So
and I'm going. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead. You're the expert.
I would say that's a seductive thing about it, because they've done more and more studies on the brain, and porn fires all kinds of pleasure circuitry in the brain. It's really similar to cocaine use, and so it's extremely powerful. And so again, the more you start to look at it, the more your brain likes it, and then the more and more you need it. It builds tolerance just like any drug, and you need more and more dopamine. And so again, you go from looking at porn for 5 minutes to looking at it for 2 hours, and not always, but then you start to look at more different things too, because you need a little bit more of a high. And so I've never been into bondage before, but boy, that really fired something different in my brain. I like that. And again, and one of the detriments to it is it can lead, doesn't always, but it can lead you to escalate and do more things, which for me, it led me honestly, ultimately to do prostitution, because after a while, the porn wasn't just enough. I wanted to be with a real person and explore this stuff with, right?
So that's the drug addictive side, that habituation where you need more and more to get that. So you're chasing the high, which can lead you to more and more aberrant behavior, like the woman on the film and the other guy. I may have to go in and do a little video edit of that preview. I forgot about the glory thing, but for my FCC channel on Thursdays. But so, how did you find people willing to do the documentary?
Well, that was a very tough part of this process, because I'd been in recovery for many years when I started graduate school, actually, to become a therapist, and I had the idea pretty early on I wanted to do this film, and I knew a lot of people, because I'd been in the 12-step Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous for off and on for 15 years, and so I asked so many people, and everyone was supportive, but they said, I can't risk losing my job if my boss saw this video, or if people in my family saw it who don't. I mean, most people don't talk about this openly, right? So
well, I'm Chinese, and this is like serious violation of the nail that stands up is hammered down, or don't air that dirty laundry. I mean, you really couldn't do much more than this, because you're putting it out there. But it sounds like you knew the importance of it, because in not talking about it, which is why it took me so long to actually address it on the air, not talking about it is hurting this whole arena of pleasure, because we're not talking about the dark side. So the dangers of the dark side, that slippery slope that you start, no pun intended, really, honestly, on that one, but starting and really diving down into areas that are not, it's really, it's almost like a small death, really, of an area that's supposed to be so beautiful in life.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I really was so thankful that Sylvia agreed to be in the film, because I really want to have a female. I mean, for a while there, all I had was just the men, which is great, but I thought at one point I'm just going to do a documentary on male sex addicts, because it was so hard to think about a female talking about this on camera, and my gosh. So she's important, because she was in the sex industry for 9 or 10 years, and she kind of got spit out of it and got into recovery, and realized that she was kind of reenacting a lot of her own trauma and neglect wounding by being in the sex industry, and was really addicted to sex. And again, you can rationalize, not everyone in the sex industry by any means is a sex addict, but she really got that she was reenacting trauma and getting kind of neglect validation that she didn't get from her parents and her dad, especially by being a sex worker.
Yeah, it's such a, when I had my co-host Davey Ward on, just that whole area. I have a friend who won awards for being an award-winning director of sex shows or pornography, and. I said to him, he wants to come on the show, and I'm not ready for that. But I said, I know of groups now of women who are speaking out, who were in the industry, and I would love to do a survey, not a survey, but a clinical research study to see what percentage of the women are similar in the story of the damage as children or damage somehow of sexual abuse. And then it's easy then to translate into the abuse that they are going through, but they see it not as abuse, but a way of being exploited or exploiting their own sexuality. And his response was, no, the ones that are talking are ones who aren't wanted anymore. so they're bitter. And I'm like, he invited me to go on set, to talk to the actresses. I don't know, but for me, it's very difficult for me for a healthy, self-loving, acting on your own behalf person to want to do that. For me, there's that disconnect. So, there might be a bridge there that I just don't know about yet.
Well, again, it's I've never been in the sex industry, so I won't comment. And obviously, I've exploited the sex industry. The sex industry has hurt me in a certain way because of, again, my own relationship to porn and prostitution and how much destruction that caused in my life. But Sylvia was in the sex industry, and she came out of it, and she says in the film like that, most of the people she came across when you're using the sex industry, most of the strippers and the other sex workers, were really sick, like really kind of, again, like when she learned about them that they'd been incested or came from pretty severe abuse or trauma, and so again, you can't generalize about anything in life, and part of it is just pure capitalism too, right? I mean, women, unfortunately, it's a way for them to make a lot of money in our society, but again, Sylvia is an example of someone who came out of it and said, look, this really was like, I was damaging myself over and over and over again.
Right. Absolutely. So it took you like 7 years to make this film. So this is definitely a baby of love, right? It wasn't easy, but worth it. In fact, I'm just going to stop here and give you Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award for your work in bringing this out in the healing aspect of it. I love the way the movie the documentary focuses not in the sordidity, and that's not a word, but you know what I'm talking about, but in the healing aspect. I really enjoyed that. So thank you. We'll give you a little bit of an applause for that. Not everybody that comes on my show gets an award.
Thank you.
So 7 years, you are screening it now. And you're getting pretty good audience. I know the screening that I was at, people were very appreciative.
Yeah, I've been kind of blown away. I think it's, going back to 2005-ish when I had the idea for this film. I remember I went one day to Amazon and I put in sex addiction documentary as a search criteria, and up came 0 results. And I thought, oh my gosh, like, this is something that's been haunting me my whole life. I've done all these years of recovery, and there's no documentary film out there about this topic. And again, starting to do the film, I kind of realized why. Because again, most people who have this do not want to be on camera. And I had a rule when I started this film, Doctor, which was I did not want to black shadow people's faces, which I had several people say, hey, you can film me and interview me, but you got to shadow my face. I don't want to be seen. And I thought, for me, that's just like putting forward, again, the shame of this addiction. So I would turn people down who wanted to be interviewed that way. And again, I really had a rule. I wanted to be like people that were willing to show us who you are. And again, finding these 4 people, me one of them, was not easy. And I'm so grateful that they all stepped up, and they each have a different little role in the film and a different way that they, act it out and recover. So I've gotten a lot of good feedback from audiences that they're all 4 kind of unique people in the film.
That's great. That's great. If you've just tuned in, you are listening to filmmaker and sex therapist Paul Ganocchio, my guest today on my series, Sexual Healing with Dr. Marissa on Take My Advice. I'm not using it, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, and it's that time to thank the sponsors of today's show. We'll be back in 2. Peace in and peace out.
Celebrate summer and find a perfect bathing suit to show off your beauty. Yvette's Bikinis on Main Street in Seal Beach will flatter your body with bikinis, takekinis, cover-ups, sundresses, and other accessories in all shapes and sizes. Visit www.thebathingsuitqueen.com and get 25% off any purchase, because it's never too late to have fun in the sun. Celebrate life on the beach and learn to surf with the M&M Surfing School. Whether it's on your bucket list or not, it's time to learn how to ride the waves. M&M provides you with everything you need. Safety first, affordable rates, equipment from ages 5 to 105, and expert instruction for all levels. Call 714-846-7873. That's 714, the letter U, go surf, and come to Seal Beach and start your life all over again with M&M. Register now at www.surfingschool.com.
And we're back. And those were my beautiful local sponsors in Seal Beach. If you're looking for something to do this summer and you want to get by the water, and the water is a beautiful power source of energy and connection, and it'll reach into your heart and pump some love, then please do come to Seal Beach. Visit Yvette's Bikinis. Mention Dr. Marissa for a special discount, as well as at the M&M Surfing School. And we are back with filmmaker and therapist Paul Ganocchio with his film documentary about sexual addiction and how to heal from that, called The Courage to Love. Paul, what would you tell listeners who are listening? I basically promote this as a little bit different of a sexual healing episode. Anyone who knows someone who might have a sexual addiction, or they themselves think that they might have a sexual addiction, could you talk to kind of like the process of discovery and healing for my listeners?
Yeah, well, that's great. Unfortunately, again, a lot of the guys who walk into my office have been caught. So there's the trauma that happens, what's called betrayal trauma, where the wife, or what, in a same-sex relationship, it's and I've had same-sex couples too, where they they leave their laptop open, or a text message comes in late at night, and it's from someone that they are planning to meet the next day, like anonymous sexual encounter or a prostitute. And so oftentimes when they get caught, unfortunately, I don't have as many clients who walk through my door who say, you know what, I have a problem, I want to work on it.
Right.
Right. And so there's a pain that happens, a consequence from the universe that says, okay, this has got to be addressed. And so so that's kind of the first step, is either, again, admitting to yourself you have a problem, which is obviously the ideal way, or getting some kind of consequence from the outside world. And then again, it's walking in. I suggest more and more to work with therapists. There's certified sex addiction therapists out there in the world. You can find them on sexaddicthelp.com, and work with someone who specializes in this, because there's still a lot of, and I don't mean ignorance negatively to judge anyone, but there's a lot of ignorance about this addiction. There's a lot of therapists who don't believe in it. And so you definitely don't want to be with someone who is trying to talk you out of this, if this is really, truly what's happening. Right. And again, Dr. Marissa, I'll say, like, not everyone who has an affair is a sex addict. And that's why, seeing someone who's certified and who can give you some testing and so forth can really see how big this is in your life, and how what the historical perspective is of this for you. And again, and then the help is individual therapy, group therapy, 12 steps. Some guys need to go do an intensive outpatient program or an inpatient program, just depending. But again, I think it's such a courageous thing to say, hey, you know what? I want to learn to have sex again with my wife and stop secretly looking at porn, or like that's just a courageous thing to admit to yourself.
Right. Now, what percent would you say of people who are coming for treatment in sexual addiction? I know this isn't a scientific study, but just like 8 out of 10 would be my guess of people who actually just really don't like themselves. They do this because they really they want to hurt themselves, or they want to sabotage their success. They don't feel like they're worthy. They don't feel like they're good enough, and so they engage in some activity that shows or has a high probability of losing everything that they've worked for their lives. Is that something that is that's my guess, because I when you don't understand something, it's like alcoholism or drug addiction. It's like, you know better, you shouldn't do, even smoking. You shouldn't do it. You know there probably is going to be some heck to pay. There's consequences that are dire, but you just do it anyways. It's as if you cannot help yourself, or you have this secret wish or hope to get caught, because then it'll prove that they were all right. All the critical thinkers, all the critical accusers that said you're not good enough. And it's like that self-fulfilling prophecy. Do you see, is that common? Am I making it up?
No, you're not. I mean, you're talking about shame or low self-esteem or shame, or again, core beliefs that to me get started in childhood, right? Which is, I'm not deserving of love. I'm not adequate as a person, and there's other reasons people do it. There's a variety of, I think, painful feelings, especially men, that just they don't want to deal with, which is shame being, I think, the most painful feeling there is, which is, again, self-hatred, basically. And then, porn feels really good, or I get really valid. I mean, I see a lot of guys with that as their issue. They go more towards anonymous sex and affairs and stuff, because they get the validation of, oh, this person wants me, right? And so that makes me feel good about myself for a moment. And so that's how shame can drive that, and it can be the same with porn. But I usually look at shame, pain, fear, and anger as kind of the 4 primary feelings that men are trying, or women are trying to avoid feeling.
Okay, to speak more to that. That sounds really interesting. So shame, you're doing it because you want to be in shame, or you've developed shame? You're afraid of what it's going to do to you? Yeah.
So there's a shame core inside of you, and so again, that's the low self-esteem is kind of the word for that, right? And so you again go to something that makes you feel good about yourself temporarily, and the irony is that ultimately you start to. I started to feel more and more shame the more I did this stuff. Again, when you're in that little moment, Dr. Marissa, and you're going to see that prostitute. I mean, it's really I call it like a trance, because you're not thinking or feeling anything. And, and it feels like hyper-present. I mean, you're hyper-present. And then again, you drive away and you're like, oh my God, now I feel really bad because I'm in a relationship and I have this secret.
Right.
But it's complicated. Shame's a very complicated thing. But I do see that a lot of guys that have, like I said, chronic affairs or are on Ashley Madison or whatever are looking for external validation because they don't have it inside themselves. Self-esteem is an inside job. That's what I say to clients. And you got to learn how to affirm yourself because you've been seeking that outside yourself. The anger piece is with a lot of men because they're really angry at their wife, for instance, or they're angry at their, coworkers, and you trace, like, why are you looking at porn at work? And there's this idea of, it's called eroticized rage, where someone is kind of eroticizing their anger and their rage. And so anger can be a big driver in this. Pain, again, like I said, I think that goes back to usually childhood stuff that you need to kind of work through. I did a lot of grieving in my healing process. And then fear, because I think a lot of the men, especially Dr. Marissa, I treat, when I start to look at their social relationships, like, I can't tell you how many men over the years have said they have like 0 male friends. Like, there's a fear there of getting close to people. Right? And so all those kind of can play in, and you can have all four of those feelings, driving you at certain times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what do you say to people who just say, "Come on, this is ridiculous. Just don't do it." I mean, you just stop doing it. Why can't you just stop doing it?
And I get that from spouses sometimes, right? Who do use what you said earlier.
If you want to stay married, if you want to be married to me, don't do it. If you want to do it, you don't get me, right?
And I wish it was as simple as that. And there's some truth in that, because I think you do have to make a decision that you want to stop. But to think that you can just do it on your own, when, again, if you look at the brain, the deep grooves in your brain that are created by these neural pathways of arousal and orgasm and the dopamine, it is a very powerful drug. And to just think you can just stop doing that. And again, some people can. Marissa, I've seen people who get caught by their wives, and literally it's like they're going to lose their family. They're sleeping on their dad's couch because their wife kicked them out of the house, and they never go back. They do work. I mean, they go therapy and stuff like that, but they really make a decision to stop. Unfortunately, I get clients who come in sometimes, and the denial is, again, such an intelligent system in some people that they, it's not really that big of a deal, and I'll point blank say, I really don't think you've made a decision to stop, and I think that's a part of this process.
So you're one of the people in the film, and you've identified as having a problem, your relationship with porn, so you cannot watch any porn at all. Is that true?
Yeah, I choose not to. I'm married. I have 3 kids. We have porn blocking filters on all our computers. I don't even have the internet on my phone. I just, I'm kind of a conservative guy. I used to kind of play around with the fact, well, maybe I can look at porn. I'm in recovery. I mean, I remember years ago when I was in my 12-step program, my sponsor at the time said, why don't you just experiment and try, like, a shame-free perspective about porn. You can just look at it. Let's just experiment for a month. You can look at it. And I got so angry at him after like 3 days, because I was literally like out of control again, and I was haggard and tired, and I really realized in that moment, like, you know what? It's not just about shame here. It's about I really am powerless over it. I get sucked up in it. It's hard to describe if you're not an addict. I mean, it's so no, I don't look at porn anymore. I have a great wife. We have a great sex life, and I'm super grateful. And I find much more nurturing and fulfillment being with someone that I'm married to and in love with.
Are you ever tempted by it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yep.
So you
more honestly, more what I call external triggers, which is, we live in a world with many, attractive, right, men, women. And, just every once in a blue moon, right, I'm out about and I'll notice an attractive woman and think for like just a split second, like, wow, that might be someone I could approach and talk to. Oh, no, can't do that. Not going to do that. Stop, Paul. And then I give myself a validation, because usually when I'm doing that, something's going on in my life. Like I had a bad session that morning with a client or like I always tracking myself, like, why am I vulnerable right now to this thought process?
Right. So we're butting up against the end of the show.
Okay.
So a couple follow-up questions. One was, you mentioned that just because someone has an affair, that doesn't mean that they are a sexual addict or they have an addiction. Right. Okay. Explain that one a little more.
Well, sex addiction is one probability in someone who has affairs, but it could be anything from again a relationship that is just not being addressed, relationship problems, and then the guy justifies it and has an affair, and that doesn't mean you're a sex addict by any means, right? But again, I usually look at the person's history and see, and again, people are usually coming to my office are in pretty extreme denial about stuff. And so we kind of trace back, and these tests help too, because I call it like an X-ray. I do like an X-ray. Okay, yeah, this test shows that, porn is very powerful in your life. But yeah, no, not everyone who comes into my office who has an affair is a sex addict by any means. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons, that people have affairs. Some of it is, like you said earlier, self-esteem stuff. Like, they don't feel good in their marriage. Their wife's really critical, and they rationalize, like, well, this woman in my work really listens to me, and seems like a great person,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and kind of falls in this fantasy relationship, or you know, they leave their wife for that person.
Right. And that's not a sexual addiction. That wouldn't categorize as so someone who has a great relationship with their wife, sex life's great, or their partner, sex life's great, everything's great, and they still go and they have an affair. That's probably on the checklist, right? That they might have a sexual
Something's
addiction.
going on with that person. Either that, or they're like they have narcissistic issues and they feel entitled to that for some reason. You know, I've heard everything under the sun while someone has an affair. The typical reason that they give is that their sex life's bad with their wife, and they justify it. And I said, well, how much do you talk about your sex life with your wife? And they're like, oh, we don't talk about it. And, well, that's okay. Well, that's a starting place. Having an affair is an extreme, you know, way to try to solve that problem. Yeah.
Right. Great. Well, anything you want to say to, well, first, any, this fabulous DVD that I actually got a gift copy. Thank you very much. And Paul did give me one for the Asian Oprah giveaway. So if you would like to have one free copy of this DVD, please do go to forbalance.org and write in my guest book documentary, and you will be the first to receive a gift copy of that. And where can other people who don't win the copy get a copy of this DVD?
Well, if you go to thecouragetolove.com, you can either get the DVD or it's actually available for streaming. You can rent it for $8 and watch it online. And again, those are the two ways to see right now. And I've had a lot of screenings around the country, but we're working on one for San Francisco right now. But it's I don't have a main distributor that's you know getting it out into the world. It's still kind of a dicey topic for a lot of people.
Right. But it won't be, because I do believe that the importance of healing is being able to actually talk about it and bring it into the light. So again, thank you for doing that, Paul Ganaucio, filmmaker, The Courage to Love. Rent it if you think you have a sexual addiction, if you know someone that you think has one. Be educated and find out to go to the places that Paul mentioned, sex addiction, I think it was sexualaddiction.org. Was that the
Sex Addict Help?
Sex Addict Help, and help yourself and make pleasure one of pleasure without the guilt, the shame, and all of that dark side. Thank you so much, Paul. Any love shout outs? Your wife's name is?
My wife's name's Tammy. She's wonderful. She accepts me, and she just was at my film screening on Sunday for like the 8th time, and she cried. She cries every time seeing it with an audience of people, so it's wonderful.
Great. And your kids' names are?
Jack, Frank, and Hazel.
Jack, Frank, and Hazel. You have a fabulous dad, and he's very courageous himself to do the work that he's doing and now helping others with his experience. Thank you very much, Paul. And that's it for today's episode of Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa. And it's time for the end of the show balance bar, where I thank you for, or let you know. Well, first I can thank a lot of different people, Tara, Melanie. There's a whole plethora of people that gave me Facebook likes. And if you go to my Facebook page, Dr. Marissa, and give me the finger or a like, I would very much appreciate it. Also, happy retirement to Jarvis. My co-producer is back on the air doing my boards. And he was in, where'd you go? Memphis, Tennessee, to surprise his dad. So happy retirement to Dad. And I talked about the 21-day fast. August 8th, please mark that on your calendar. I'm doing another balanced retreat. This one's on the beach, not in Sedona. And more details will be coming up shortly for that. But for now, just hold the date, August 8th, where you will learn balance tools to get rid of and smog check the belief systems. Also, contact Jarvis if you're interested in being a caller on my second week of the month caller episode on this show. And next week, we are in for a treat. It's two terms that don't usually go together, but he's a psychic lawyer. Mark Anthony will be my guest next week on Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa Pay. That's P for positive, EI. And remember, it's all about balance. Peace in and peace out.
Before the dawn, for I am weak and he is strong. He lifts me up so I can see how dark it is before the dawn. It was cold outside and dangerous, and I couldn't see my own good. People hurt me on the outside, and inside I started to bleed. How dark it is before the dawn.
Is your radio station dull and boring like most corporate-owned stations on the dial? Then it's time to tune to KCAA 1050 AM. It will blow your mind and maybe expand it too. KCAA is your independently owned go-to station in the Inland Empire. It's a veritable cornucopia of crazy, an assemblage of awesome and cool, and it's a little weird too. KCAA pumps out more local and national radio each week.